Well, it's now 7 o'clock and it's time for us to get into the segment we call Person of Interest, where we take an individual who possibly is in the limelight, but also try and find out where they're coming from, how did they grow up, and how did they get to where they are. We'll also look at their current position and what it entails. And this morning, it is none other than the former police spokesman, but now currently the government spokesman, and none other than Eric Kiraithe. Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mike.
Great to have you.
Viewers.
All right, and before we continue, maybe just to refresh our minds, as he was the police spokesman and some of the things that he had to say. Maybe some of us may have forgotten your previous position before you got to where you are. And this is Eric Kiraithe as the police spokesman.
If you keep a dog and you feed it and you train it to bite, don't quarrel if it bites you. A man called Bertrand Russell said sometimes it is not sufficient for us to keep complaining about others, because more often than not, that the complaint we are airing usually reflects our own character. It is a reflection from inside ourselves. What we are and what we are doing, and because we want to compensate our conscience, we had rather say, unajua Mbogwa, it wasn't me. Kuna wimbo huko wa .com ambaye nasikianga inaimba wasn't me. So I think that is a thing we would want to correct.
All right, so that is Eric Kiraithe in the studio this morning. And just a quick reminder, if you would like to interact and maybe ask him questions directly, feel free to do so. You can do that via Twitter, or we'll also open up the phone lines as we continue with the conversation. So, Mr. Eric Kiraithe, thank you for coming and welcome to the studio. Now, starting off maybe from just your background, where you grew up, and whether you ever envisioned yourself to becoming a government spokesman.
Well, Mike, thank you very much for this opportunity. Viewers, I think I was just a simple village boy. A lot of village is still in me. I was born in Chogoria, in a village called Kiriani. Then it was the Greater Meru district. These days it is Tharaka-Nithi. So my father was a teacher. My mother was a nurse. I guess she still is, because my mother is still alive by the grace of God.
Okay.
And I went to the village primary school, Kiriani Primary School, which is which mud floors, mud walls at some point. Then they were improved. Then you walk to school. When they talk about climate change, I can see it in my life, because those days, every morning was wet. There was a lot of dew.
Even if it didn't rain, there was dew on the grass.
There was dew on the grass. Every morning was white. We are close to Mount Kenya, but that has gone now. It's only in a few seasons in a year, and not in all the years, that you see that. And if you were lucky to have a pair of shoes, it was for Sunday school, not for going to school.
So you'd go to school barefoot?
So I went to school barefoot throughout. Or maybe it's a sports day, or there is some function. And of course, we were in shorts and shirts, khaki. That is, I think that was what we had inherited from the white man. The village was very great. A lot of fruits. Nobody cared whether you eat mangoes or such things. And we had teachers. One thing I miss, we had teachers who talked good English language. So from there, I went to Chogoria Boys High School. Of course, at Standard 7, I graduated at the top of my class.
You were top of the class?
Yes.
Okay, so you're an A student.
I was an A student. I went to Chogoria Boys, where I had a lot of interest in football, volleyball, and high jump. And I represented the school at some point up to the provincial level. So I was also in sports. I left Chogoria Boys also an A student, because I had a Division 1.
Wow.
And that made me very happy. I went to Kitui School, another very humble school those days. So from Kitui School, I went to the University of Nairobi.
Okay, what was your favorite subject when you were in school?
I can tell you that, okay, I liked mathematics a lot, but I could not crack it in chemistry. So I went to the arts. I don't know what, when I read chemistry these days, I find it very easy and palatable.
But at that time,
I couldn't
just could not click. All right, maybe fast forwarding, how did you end up in the police service?
Well, after university, I had always, my father was a disciplinarian. And I had always admired a life of discipline. When I went to the university, those were days when there wasn't a lot of democracy around. And there was a lot of suppression. And I have always felt I can change things. So quite interestingly, we went to the police to change it. And when we joined the police with a gentleman like Engineer Komen Chebere, he's a civil engineer, and now the county commander, Nairobi area, Nairobi City County. And we were with Mr. Ndegwa Mohoro, the current director of CID. So we were quite a class of university graduates, the first lot to get into Kiganjo as pure police constables. Police constable is the lowest rank in the police.
And this was not because you had failed your examinations. Obviously, you were coming from university.
No. I graduated with a second class honors degree. Yeah, upper. And I had every opportunity to go back to do my master's. I had an appointment with the Ministry of Information because I have developed a lot in issues of journalism. And also, when I was still at the police college, I got an appointment as a district officer. So not that we were starved of choices. And by the way, I even taught. Immediately after university, I went teaching. I taught for about a year. So it is not because there was a shortage of jobs. I think I liked the police service, I liked law enforcement, and I believed it can be done in a more honest way. And let me tell you sincerely, when I look back, if I was making that decision today, I would still have made the decision to become a policeman. I've never regretted it.
You mentioned that you wanted to change the police service at that time, and you had, let me say, a rare crop of university graduates who are looking at the police service. What is it that you wanted to change?
There is something I think I have not changed a lot. It always disgusted me to see somebody collecting money on the road.
In form of bribes?
In form of bribes. It always... And it still disturbs me a lot. The next thing I wanted to change is that I believed by outreaching to the community, being available to the university students, for example, police could enforce the law in a better way. So I must tell you that I also believed that police needed people with good education, not university degrees, good education. And when I say good education, is that you have seen, we have a lot of people, and also the universities have relaxed a lot, just giving out papers, and even in government, people claiming promotion on account of what they have got. But I think what we needed, and we need it up to today, we need people who are specialists in management of law enforcement, management of crime, people who can express it, and people who will stand their position and be able to tell people this is what is policing. Let me tell you, Mike, I believe that a lot of Kenyans know what is supposed to be done in education, and they feed into the policy. We have made a lot of steps forward. A lot of Kenyans understand economics. They know what is required. A lot of Kenyans understand engineering. Even if there are some who deviate, they know what is engineering. But we have astonishingly few people who understand administration of the law, who understand management of crime, and who understand policing. They are there, but they are just too few and too quiet. And there is no way a profession which is a few centuries old, several centuries old, policing is one of the oldest professions. There is no way you are going to have law-abiding citizens when you don't have people who understand what is law enforcement and can talk about it.
And especially if they're the ones who are supposed to enforce the same law.
Yes. It's an area which has been very neglected. When we go to the universities, they just teach what they pick from the internet. Mm-hmm. Nobody has taken time. When you take people abroad, they look at a police station just one day, they see what the hosts want them to see, and they come back and say they understand policing. Without going a little bit deeper, for example, I have had an opportunity to understudy several police services. Mm-hmm. In this country, for example, if you wake up any OCS in the morning, ask him, what is the population of this place? How many people do you have? What are their age sets? Where do they live? What do they do? You see, like the problems you have of corruption
So
today,
would they be able to answer that question?
in Kenya, they can't.
They can't. And
They can't.
You went into the police service from your own admission to try and change things. And looking at the way it is, I stand to be corrected, you didn't succeed in doing that. For example, you've talked about you could not stand the fact that people would receive money, or anybody who would try and receive money in form of a bribe. Yet we know that one of the most corrupt institutions, according to statistics, is the police service. What do you think made you fail in having that area dealt with?
What I would tell you is that the politicians who lead this country, for a long time, they don't know what is policing. It's unfortunate to say it. And therefore, police receives policy and political direction from people who just assume they know. And from that, the rank and file. You know, when we are now democratizing slowly, we are going somewhere, but if the person making the policy on promotions does not understand the competencies, they don't understand what the services actually look like, he is not going to promote the right person. And what happens is that the value system becoming professional is diluted because the most professional policeman will not be promoted. And therefore, the motivation to be professional disappears. There is an area I think I changed, and I'm very proud whenever I see Mr. Charles Owino. When I had an opportunity to now advise directly on the policy, on communication, as a police spokesman, I think I created a new image. Ever since I've been meeting young people, I have gone to a few secondary schools, I would say I would want to join the police and become the police spokesman. Mm-hmm. And whenever I look at Mr. Owino talking about law enforcement, because I plucked him out from the Lewis Police Unit, and we started working together and studying. He had the interest. And up to today, you cannot fault this man as a communicator in the police service.
Okay. Still on the police service, and when you are still there as a police spokesman, what are some of the things you would say you brought change, apart from now, the office of the police spokesman, which was previously not there, in terms of especially changing the perception of Kenyans towards police? We have a very negative perception towards police because of some of the things you've mentioned, one of them being corruption, two, maybe being incompetence. There's also that notion and feeling that one becomes a policeman out of desperation.
Let me tell you, and not only myself, along with several others, along with several past leaders in the police service, we have changed the perception to a very large degree. For example, when I was an inspector of police, in every station I served, initially, people would be skeptic. They would be skeptical and they would still be treating you at arm's length. But by the time I was there for an year, a lot of things changed. And when I look at it now, for example, I'll tell you what, the police involve and engage in very, very destructive petty corruption. It is very, very destructive to their own image. It removes a lot of revelage from them in very many ways. When you are negotiating for salaries with Treasury, when you are negotiating with other institutions you have to work with. Luckily, I've been able to serve the police in the United Nations. I've been able to serve the police inside Central Bank. I was able to serve the police from here. I was the general manager, safety and security for the Kenya Airports Authority. That is in aviation security. Another area I did very well because I'm one of the ICAO certified aviation security managers. International Civil Aviation Organization is an affiliate organization of the United Nations, which deals with civil aviation internationally. And when I sat with other general managers, you know, there are others in finance, there are others in marketing, not once did I ever feel even an inch inferior. And therefore, because of that professionalism, the people I worked with in Central Bank, directors, managers, all have a lot of respect for me. And they saw the police from a different perspective.
That is true, and
Yes.
that is respect for you as Eric Kiraithe. But what about the police service? What about the whole institution in terms of now people viewing it professionally? Looking at some of the things that just happened, you've mentioned a few of them, and that is just simple information that maybe a police officer should have and do not have. So the perception from the public sometimes is that they're not professional. Did you do anything to change that perception?
We did a lot because we contributed a lot in the training curriculum. We started talking with NGOs and showing that they are not enemies. Not every civil society group is an enemy. But remember, there are people with a stake in showing the police as a negative entity. Mm-hmm. There are people who will not get donations. There are people who will not get donor funding if they don't continue demonizing the police. Mm-hmm. Another thing I would want to tell you is that the challenge of the service now, and as it has always been, nobody has set out to invest in a human resource base of the police. Everybody wants to stand outside the police and try to impose change on it. The move to develop what is in the police and give it an opportunity to thrive is still to gain currency. And that is one of the key reasons we fought very hard for a National Police Service Commission. But when we went to implement it, it is not policemen who sat there. Let me tell you one thing. These people you see, retired police officers like Cherambos, Mr. Kiruki, Mr. Bongo, and a whole lot of them, they were trained by the colonial government, they were trained by earlier government, and they know exactly what is supposed to go into a professional police service. They have interacted. We have gone to international forums where we are given an opportunity to be professional. And when I was in Sierra Leone for 2.5 years, I was a team leader throughout. In my team, I would have Canadians, I would have Britons, and nobody ever fought us. But that professional freedom, initially it was being denied because of political interference. Past government saw the police as a weapon to assist them in politics. I think now with the new constitution, we are past that, but we still have a long way to go in terms of giving professional police officers the entire freedom they require, just like the teachers, just like the others. And I can tell you that the current government has done a lot in that direction. The current government has done that. We are not there yet.
Okay.
But a lot has happened in that direction.
In that area. Now, there are police reforms that had been proposed some time ago, and you've alluded to them. And just like you've mentioned, there are those who were trained by the colonialists. And still, there was that perception that policemen approach citizens with an angle of authority, with an angle of power, with an angle of almost harassing as opposed to helping. And that has been a perception that has been seen for a long time.
Yes.
That has not changed even with the reforms. Okay, it has maybe improved to a small degree, but not to the degree that many Kenyans would say, now I view a policeman as a friend as opposed to one who is coming to harass me.
Now, you know, I hope I won't surprise you. That should never change.
The fact that the police are there to harass?
No. It's because the public don't understand the tools of trade. You have mentioned the image of power.
Yes.
If you don't give an officer of the law the power, if you don't give him the authority, yes? If you don't give him then you will have to have a situation where you are fighting crime, not managing crime. And the power of the police officer is not supposed to be personal. You know, as human beings, we have very, very many needs which are conflicting. So we sit down and make a law saying, you can only drive on the left. And you will not drive on the pavement so that there is order. You know, law and order.
Correct.
So there is order in society. If all of us want money, you can only earn money by working, by trading, but you cannot earn money by stealing it. You cannot rob me. And so many other series of needs. If you don't have a body in society with the authority and the power to ensure that we all remain. Look at what happens when a governor emergency is very powerful. They are driving on the wrong side of the road.
And yet the police still don't enforce or harass them or arrest.
Look at our politicians. They believe instead of campaigning and convincing people, they are supposed to fight, do hate speech, create chaos. The law says you have the freedom to demonstrate. But you must remember your demonstration has nothing to do with me if I decide to take a walk, if I'm driving on the road. And you see people are demonstrating and burning the road. Burning tires on the road, the next thing you see is a pothole. Tire is combustible. When you look at all these things, if there be no power in society with a monopoly of using coercive force, that's why we say the states have the monopoly, not the state as in the politicians and whatever. They are supposed to have a police service which is also supposed to work within the law, within procedure, so that in spite of the few resources we have in terms of space for freedom, because we are very many, in terms of resources, in terms of means of going where you want to be, then the thing you see is lawlessness. Let me talk to harassment. Harassment is a tactic. And because right from our secondary schools, from our primary schools, we never told people what is policing. If a policeman confronts you and surprises you, you think it is harassment. That is why you go to any airport in the world, the security will always tell you Kenyans are fond of complaining of harassment. You remember there is a deputy chief justice in this country who lost her position because she went to a gigiri, to a shopping mall, and because of the psychology of harassment, she refused to be searched like everybody else. So the blame given by the police, as I told you, I alluded earlier, is that if you don't understand something, you'll never be able to grade it. So the fact that policing in this country is not understood leads to some of these perceptions. Another thing I'll tell you about why the policing is not well understood is because we have a very small of literacy in the judiciary. The majority of our judiciary go get the first degree, go to the school of law, and after that they are magistrates and judges. Maybe they will do a master's degree, but the impact of the law on society, and unfortunately we are one country with a very high per capita rate of lawyers who understand the law in terms of a theory. This one has led to very bad laws. This one has led to the reality that when one policeman misbehaves or holds someone for becomes malicious, we even set a law to limit what a policeman can do. Professional police services will use force, they will use firearms, they will confront you, but they will still be admired.
But of course, they have to do that within the confines of the law. And one of the reasons why possibly they're not admired in this country, like I said, is because they have that, maybe, I could be wrong, but they may have inherited that colonial perspective of being an authoritarian over and above the citizens who pay their tax or who pay their salaries. Yet, they're there to inform, to guide, to protect. And I'll use a different example. You've talked about when governors flout the law, they go on the wrong side of the road. No policeman will stop them. In fact, if anything, when they have their siren going on, the rest of us have to move for them to pass. That is what makes us, as citizens of this country, feel that we are not equal, and the police are there to protect a few, just like the colonialists. They were there to protect the colonialists against the masses of the people. We are the mass of the people. We expect the police to protect us as well from them.
Now, that is an area you are very correct. The issue of misuse of the police by the political class.
Correct.
And we tried a lot. We have tried several times to say that you don't need this. But the politicians now, you collectively elect, always see it as part of their benefits. Everybody wants a bodyguard. Instead of managing crime, we went to protective security.
And that, by the way, is because of where we are as a country. The reason why they probably need bodyguards is because we're at a point where there's so much crime. It becomes catch-22.
I don't think anybody needs so many bodyguards. I'm one of those people who have always been entitled for quite some time to a bodyguard, but I don't walk around with one. I am not saying that people should attempt things. We are very secure. We have other systems of making ourselves secure, but what I'm saying is that that particular aspect, even if you talk to the Inspector General today, gives him a lot of headache. Because
is he powerless?
we have, let me tell you one thing. When I studied my master's degree, I did my thesis on management of change in the police. One of the things the Inspector General must do is that he must do what is called stakeholder management. Remember that these politicians are the policy leaders in Treasury. Remember that they are the people in other government departments. And the police cannot survive on its own. So, at this stage in development, you must go up with everybody else. I am looking forward to one day when we shall have a crazy IG.
And you shall have
a crazy one.
A crazy IG.
Yes. and some of those things will change overnight.
So is it possible that the IG has been defeated to deal with some of those things?
No.
Is it that he's
let
powerless?
me tell you.
Because they're law enforcers.
Let me tell
Why
you.
can't they enforce the law?
Look at the kind of office of the IG we created. 4 years, tenure of office. 4 years. I don't know whether anybody can manage anything effectively in 4 years. When you look at the judiciary, 6 years. When you look at the director of prosecutions, with whom you must work, 8 years. When you look at everybody else, but when it came to the inspector general, it's only
4 years.
And therefore, you prioritize. Do you want smooth management? Because sometimes you have to create a crisis for things to move. There are things, managing the police is a very delicate function. It's very delicate. I've stayed close to several managers, CEOs of the police, but I think it's the trickiest thing you can do.
Okay.
And one of the things you would not do, and I wouldn't if the IG asked me for advice, is to completely antagonize the political class. So because you'll have to study so many things before you start. You remember there is a principal secretary who occupied some of the offices, and they wrote a letter to politicians telling them, don't come here asking for transfers. It became very unpopular. And it meant that there are people who can fight very hard. So as the commander of the police in this country, you might not want to attract that to yourself.
But don't we need people like those who will make a change? Because are we saying then, because a political class may come against that with fury because of what it may cost them politically speaking, then do we bend the law? Do we allow them to get away with what they have to do because for one reason or the other we don't want to antagonize? And maybe that's why we need the crazy IG you're talking about.
There is a political moment, a historical moment, which can be seized. I don't think that moment is now. That moment cannot be now. There will come an historical moment where that, I don't know, I have not asked him, but I think also there are times the current IG must be sitting and saying, do I get crazy now? And after doing all the factors, he says no. Because you must change the society at a certain pace. You can see the way America was becoming liberal, was becoming open. And you can see the kind of brakes the electorate has slammed on that move. Look at Brexit. You can see there was a huge consensus in the world that we integrate more, we are stronger. Just like Hillary put it, we are stronger together. The Brits have slammed emergency brakes on that and said, no. Cameron did not commit any other crime. Hillary. If you look at the statement, Make America Great Again, it is saying, let's go back. And therefore, an historical moment must be right for some things to occur. Otherwise, you will achieve nothing.
Okay. All right, let's move on now to another part of your duties, which is now your current office, which is the government spokesman. And looking at some of the questions and tweets that were coming through earlier, there are those who feel that the government spokesman is a spin doctor. He's there to take situations and make them look good for the government. Is that a fact?
Let me tell you, Mike, the government spokesman is not a spin doctor. He talks the truth. If Webuye paper factory is reopened by the government, and you sit and tell people, this is not politics. This is 500 people who have been walking around jobless, ambaye atakuwa akiweka kakitu kwa mfuko every end of the month.
Does the government also speak to the fact of the timing, why it is coming now as opposed to have come earlier? Is it a campaign?
Of course, what I would tell you is this. For example, the current government has been here for 4 years. And it did not, when you see the factory being opened, it did not start there. They started working on it right from the day they got into the office. And now it is there. When we shall open the standard gauge railway, it will not be something we will have achieved on that day. It is something which we'll have worked on for a very long time. Tomorrow, we are creating another 300 jobs in Dhaka, the Volkswagen factory. We shall open it. When you tell Kenyans, this is another 300 people
who are going to be employed.
You are not spinning anything. You are telling them this is what development looks like.
Okay, that is true. But let's also now talk about things that possibly are not going well. We have the doctor's strike, 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks, 1 day that is going on right now. That is definitely something that, what's your view on that?
Let me tell you my view on this. One, the government has tried a lot. And two, we are in a transition. People don't understand why we needed the Sarah Serem Commission. Three, the doctors have proved to me one thing. They don't understand industrial relations. Now let me tell you one thing. You are not supposed to go on strike until you prove we can do without you. So Sion made that mistake, and I think he learned a hard lesson from it.
So are you saying we can do without the doctors?
That is what they have proved. And I can tell you, I know the government is very, very committed because we need services to Kenyans. The government is really committed, it is really distressed, and that is why they offered what they offered. And let me tell you, the doctors have not only proven that they don't understand and subscribe to their own oath of office, because doctors, policemen, teachers have two employers. One is the government to earn money. The second one for the doctor is the patient, is the sick person. I liked when the country, the teachers in the country went on strike. There is a school which continued teaching. And the principal explained very clearly, we regard ourselves as having two contracts. We have a contract with the government for which we are striking. We have a contract with the children who are not part of this. And we don't want to negate it.
But obviously, if the doctors continued working with business as usual, evidently, given that this was a CBA signed in June 2013, we are now in 2016, going to 2017, and nothing has been implemented, then the government obviously would not implement it.
That CBA was a draft. Even when you look at it, and it was to be taken to Treasury, it was to be taken to the governors, it was also to be taken to the Sarah Serem Commission.
A signed draft.
What happens is this. You signed to endorse as goodwill. The ministry wanted to show, we want you to be where you want to be. But there are processes. That's why the court has said, this is illegal. And the doctors have not even argued that it is legal. They have said, we won't obey the court of law. And therefore, I told you here, the issues of administration of the law, the issues of law enforcement are very, very poorly understood. So, and there is something Kenyans must understand. Doctors are not actually on strike. Yesterday, I was treated by a doctor. Doctors are there, but they are available for the rich. And let me tell you, the minute you hear somebody saying that, immediately you leave university, granted you spent there 7 years, you start earning 330,000 in this country. then I think that is on the greedier side. I'm not ashamed to say it.
That if they leave university and they want to earn, what, 300,000?
300,000.
Okay.
I think those of us who have gone to school must show why we are different from the MCS. It is not that we are different because we go to different supermarkets, but we must show some belief in humanity. We must show some confidence. I would have expected, the doctors made a very strong point by going on strike, and as a negotiation tool, they had every responsibility to say, look here, if you are not hurrying these things, if you are taking your sweet time while we are being squeezed, but some things like literally asking for suites, you know, the hotel suites, with restroom and all that, at this stage in our development, it is actually, I think, it's only that the government still believes in negotiating. There are a lot of things we can say. But today I have some liberty because you are interviewing me as an individual. The doctor strike is irresponsible because the people suffering are the poor of this country. Nobody goes to these public hospitals who is a decision maker. And I come to the next point. One of the reasons we said a Salaries and Remuneration Commission was principally because towards any election, the key professional groups, the bigger labor forces, teachers, critical ones like, they would always threaten the politicians because they know the politicians are vulnerable because they are looking for votes. Then there was a lot of imbalance. So when we were doing the constitution, people asked, what will be the solution to this? We borrowed examples like the United States, where they have a federal wages, and salaries guidelines for everybody. Said, we recommend this. If you want to pay $1 million, it's okay, but this is the base. And that is the only way we shall professionalize this country. If every time there is an election near, critical professional groups decide to flex the muscles, what the doctors are doing is seizing a political moment. They are not on the serious, in the strict, and I'm telling you, I'm giving you a week. We have doctors in this country who have started feeling the guilt. If Oluga does not lead the times, the signs of the times, I can tell you there are doctors who will go back, they will treat people. There are today doctors who are offering their services quietly, but sooner than later they will have to come out. A week? And I'm telling you, you will be told to his face that the direction you are leading us. So Sioni tried it, and teachers went back to classrooms.
All right. As now we maybe conclude on the doctors' strike, what is your statement to Kenyans as the government spokesman regarding the fact that right now Kenyans are at home not knowing, with sick ones? On the newspapers today we have people who are terminally ill who are removed from Kenyatta Hospital to be taken home because there is no care. What is your statement to Kenyans as the government spokesman regarding our healthcare?
What I'm telling Kenyans is that the government is committed to improving the terms and conditions of doctors, and basically everything which can be done is being done to ensure that these medical services resume. Another thing, having criticized them as a professional myself in my own area, I would want to tell the doctors that you have made your point. Go back and serve humanity.
All right. Let's look at another area where maybe I'd like to hear your comments. This is to do with corruption. And the government has definitely had a huge challenge in dealing with corruption. There's been scandal after scandal. As Eric Kiraithe, the government spokesman, what do you have to tell Kenyans regarding that?
What I would want to tell Kenyans is that the corruption is a very sad thing. But as a country, we made it a tradition, which we need to change. And the greatest change will come from individual level. We have, I don't feel guilty to say that this government is receiving more than its blame, because of course we are going for elections. most of those blaming the government are not any better, but that does not mean corruption is good. One, we have quite expanded democratic space, and the government has chosen, the current government has chosen not to use its muscle to suppress information on corruption. A lot of people have been asked to leave, others have been sacked, others have been prosecuted, but it is a battle we must fight as a country.
But the big fish are still out there somewhere. We have billions that have been lost in several sectors. We have the NYS scandal which is going on. We still don't have any convictions. I know it's not within your power to say who should be convicted or not, but yes, as a government spokesman, is there a time that you come out and say, we have failed?
Let me tell you, in the management of youth fund, we failed. And the person responsible was dismissed and prosecuted. In the management of NYS, to the extent that some money got lost, we failed. But the entire lot was removed. This is a place where 18 senior people, permanent secretary, have been dismissed. And the story we want to tell Kenyans is that not even in Goldenberg, not even in Anglo-Leasing, not in the many scandals rolling over and over, not in the many people who have stolen government land and are still sitting on it and as they talk. I don't want to mention names, I don't want to sound political, but a lot of these people are sitting on this stolen property. Molasses plant, they are not giving up an inch. But they are complaining that somebody who was dismissed, somebody who has been prosecuted, was corrupt. The government has done its best. And the signals we are seeing from the judiciary are very, very encouraging. You remember the judiciary got very excited after the new constitution and it was all media and all that. I think now the turbulence is over. It's the time to settle down and deliver something for Kenyans. And I am convinced judicially will deliver that. But we are such a litigious society that somebody was even saying he is taking the judiciary itself to court for making some decisions. But I believe this government is doing the right thing, going by what has been covered in the last 4 years. Honestly, I wish we had this kind of pace of development for 10, 20 years. Kenya would actually realize Vision 2030 very early. So what I'm telling you in my current job is that I talk for the government and I want Kenyans to pick the facts. Kenyans should pick the facts and their impact, not the rhetoric and the politics.
Okay, let me take a call from Margaret in Subukia. Good morning, Margaret. And thank you for calling. Yes, mzuri kabisa.
Gitonga, nilikuambia mimi Kizungu inanipitanga lakini ninasikianga kidogo kidogo.
Sawa, hata Kiswahili ni sawa, lugha ya taifa.
Sasa nina swali habari msemaji wa serikali.
So endelea na swali tafadhali.
Anauliza huyu msemaji wa serikali. Nimesikia akisema hapo maneno ya madaktari kugoma. Yeye kama msemaji wa serikali anashauri nini serikali kuwaambia wakae na wadaktari kwa ajili watu tunakufa. Hii kura nani atapiga na tunaendelea kuumia. Mwache serikali akae nao waongeze mishahara madaktari warudi kazini. Neno ya pili, yeye alikuwa msemaji wa polisi. Na hii tabia polisi wanatumikia, hii tabia ni namna gani? Kwa sababu hata polisi wamesahau majukumu yao. Adui yao mkubwa ni tang'aa tu kufuruka kwa miji ya watu wakipiga watu na maneno na kuchukua hongo. Ya tatu, mimi nimekuwa na kijana yangu. Hawa polisi wamechukua badala ya kuona hata kama iko na makosa wapeleke wa muhoji, waliweka kwa miti wakatandika risasi 7 na akakufa na alikuwa mtoto wa dada yangu peke yake. Sasa mimi naambia msemaji wa serikali, shauri serikali na hao mapolisi wao kama uliokuwa mkuu yao, ukae nao uwashauri tabia ile wanatumikia siku nzuri. Nimeona wametoa karatasi ya tutazawadi polisi mwema. Hakuna polisi mwema ule tutazawadi.
Aya, asante sana Margaret. Let me take a call from Robert in Rongai as well. Robert. Good morning, Robert, and thank you for calling. To your question or comment.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask a few questions. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
I was wanting to ask Mr. Kiraithe, who was a senior spokesman of police, a very senior police officer, during his time, what did he do in order to motivate the junior officers who are always under pressure? And as concerning their payments, is it equivalent to the work they do? You find that most of the officers, as has been said earlier, they are corrupt. What did he do to make sure that this corruption may end to these officers? Maybe those few questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Robert. And, well, let's start with Margaret, who's obviously quite agitated. Number one thing, she says that, fine, you can say that Kenya can do without the doctors, which is a statement you made earlier, but Wakenya wanakufa, to use her statement. So, contradictory right there. So I don't know your comments to that.
My comments is that, thank you very much, Margaret. She has made a very strong statement. I said, the doctors, in terms of labor relations, in terms of negotiating, the doctors have pushed their strike to a level that people are seeking alternatives. As a professional group, ukigoma, hauhitajiki kugoma mpaka watu wanaangalia kando. Unahitajiwa kugoma ndiposa uweze kuonyesha kwamba uko na maslahi na lazima iangaliwe. Ukigoma mpaka pahali ambapo watu wanaanza kuzoea kufanya kazi bila wewe, kufikiria alternatives, then unakosea. So, kama ningeweza kufafanulia Margaret ni kwamba sisemi nchi hii inaweza kufanya kazi bila madaktari. No community can survive or no country survived without medics. Lakini jambo nilisema ni kwamba the minute serikali itaanza kufikiria, can we get expatriates from India? Can we get doctors from Cuba? Can we get doctors from Philippines? They will have defeated their own purpose. Another thing, jambo ambalo Margaret amesema la muhimu sana. Tuko na madaktari waokoe uhai. The minute madaktari wameonyesha kwamba we don't care if people die or not. We are more interested on our salary. Increment 300%. Then as a profession, you're also sending a very bad message.
Okay. Although I think it will be unfair to say that's what they're saying, because reason being, the CBA, like we mentioned earlier, was signed in 2013. So they have given time, but there doesn't seem to be any action being taken from the government end. But I don't want to go back into that. Let's address Robert in Rongai, who says that during your time in the police service, what is it that you did to motivate the junior officers? And secondly, is their pay equivalent to the work that they do?
Let me say that I don't want to start taking credit, but I think I am one of the very many police officers who stood up very consistently, especially in the media, to say that our terms and conditions must be looked into. And I think the fruits have come in terms of medical. Today, the issue is not whether there is a medical insurance or not. It is how much is it covering. And I think we started and we are moving on. The other issue was the issue which we were very passionate about, was the issue of housing. Because of changing policies, it has not gone with the pace we set up those days. 3,000 units. We are the people who brought strategic management into the police. I was the secretary of the first strategic plan. And I went on to do my master's in business administration in strategic management. Mm-hmm. So to motivate policemen, we did a lot. And this is how I learned. You can hear me talking about trade unions and how you negotiate. I learned that because I wanted to also be a spokesman for the police officer at the station level.
At the station.
So we did a lot of that. Finally, pay, I think the point has been made. What we need is to continue improving it.
All right, Mr. Eric Kiraithe, we'll have to wind it up right there. Time waits for no man, not even a king. And we still have so much we could have talked about, but we'll have to call it a day right there. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio this morning.
Yes,
and well, that's our person of interest, and any questions that maybe we've not addressed, I will send them to him, and possibly at a different forum, we'll be able to answer them, or he can also respond to them via Twitter. And that is Eric Kiraithe, the current government spokesman, as our person of interest. Well, we're going to take a short break. Those of us on KTN News, we've got some news updates coming up. Later on, we'll be looking at your money and find out how you can start your year financially healthy right here on Morning Express. Those of us on KTN Home, it's time for Life and Style. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.